one, am not gonna thumb my nose at the people that are gonna keep my city safe. So I'm gonna vote for the raise.
I didn't hear that, sir. Go ahead.
I, for one, am not going to thumb my nose at the people that are going to keep the city safe. And I will vote yes for that raise.
Well, none of us are thumbing our nose. And I think that's a very poor terminology to say that. I'm here asking questions and asking for some answers.
I'm just telling you.
Nobody thinks more of the
Mr.
city
Prince.
employees than I do. I've worked with them for years. So don't give me that baloney that we're thumbing our nose and all like that.
Well, if we
We
turn down
have
the
some
raise, then we
serious
are.
problems, and we have to look at them.
Absolutely.
And it concerns money. And I don't want to see a lot of people in this town that can't afford to pay their taxes and lose their homes.
Mr. Clancy,
Mr. Hedgelon? Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
I have the floor right now. Just like when you were mayor, the city budget is based upon assumptions. There are assumptions as to what the revenues will be. You look at the following year and you make your best guess, which is an assumption as to what your expenditures are going to be. The 2009 budget was based upon a series of assumptions. One of those is that we're going to get, I believe it's $4.3 million in sales tax. Another assumption is that we're going to get approximately $1.8 million in state aid. And in addition, there's an assumption about what the real property tax receipts will be. Like any budget, if the assumptions don't pan out, you make adjustments to your assumptions. So in the event that we begin to see a substantial change in our sales tax revenue, or the state legislature and the governor were to decrease our state aid, we would then make adjustments within the calendar year, so that we would keep our expenditures in balance with our revenue stream. In addition, the city has been drawing on a fund reserve for a number of years, and I think it goes back to 1994 when you were mayor. You were mayor in 1994, correct?
Yeah.
So the city balanced its budget by going to the fund reserve. At some point, there's a risk that we're going to run out of fund reserve money. When that will be is hard to tell. It depends on a number of variables. And there will be some very difficult times if and when that happens. Now, everybody in this room is aware that we have an economic and financial crisis, if not catastrophe, in this country. Everybody understands that. The police officers and the firefighters, under the Public Employee Relations Law, have an opportunity, as does the city, if an agreement cannot be worked out, you can take the disagreement to arbitration. Arbitrators under the law are allowed to take into account specified things in trying to figure out where to set the award. Up until about 10 days ago, no arbitrators' awards had been announced that took into account the financial crisis. And the negotiations with the police department started off before the financial crisis, continued during the financial crisis. There have been some very candid conversations with the representatives of the PBA about what the city's situation was, what our concerns were, which include a decrease in sales tax revenue and/or changes in our state aid. All three of the unions that represent city employees I asked that they be given the update information that we get on our sales tax revenues, so that they know right up front what's going on. There's absolute transparency on what is going on there. And they know that if we begin to have a problem with that the city is going to come to them and say we may need to reopen our contracts. With respect to the proposal to have a one-year contract with the Police Benevolent Association, the PBA and the city both have chosen not to go to arbitration. We both agreed to have a one-year contract that will give us some time to see what happens with the economy, see what happens to our revenue streams.
Well, didn't everybody else have a 3-year contract?
Yes, that is correct. The CSEA...
Why just one?
Pardon?
Why just one?
Because we want because we want to see what's going to happen. We
Well,
don't
then
want to lock.
the other ones had 3-year contracts you passed.
Well, those contracts were negotiated before the financial crisis became acute.
Pete, I understand all that, our mayor, and I know what you're saying, but when you're talking about the fund balance back in '94, we had fund balances of 50, 60%. We were criticized by the state because you're only supposed to keep 5 or 10%. We had a lot of money then. Things were different. Things have changed. And I really feel sorry for people that's elected today. You got a tough job. I know what it is. The money isn't there and everything is going sky high. A lot of people are going to suffer. A lot of people are going to suffer in this town. That's my opinion. Nancy, I'm not as smart as a lot of you people or lawyers and all like that. I'm just an everyday guy with a little bit of common sense. And that's it. So, thank you very much for your explanation. And
Well, I'm gonna finish my explanation with respect to arbitration. There have been 2 recent arbitration awards that came out of PERB. They both referenced the financial situation, but they did not rely upon it. In one instance, they gave a law enforcement union a 4-year contract with 4% per year. And in the other instance, it was at least a 2-year contract at 3.5%. And in talking with our labor lawyer, William Wallens, he agrees that it's very unlikely that the city would get a lesser percentage increase were we to go to arbitration. But if we went to arbitration, the ability of the city to pay would be a key issue. And the arbitrators would look at the fact that we have a substantial positive fund balance, that our our limit on how much we can bond for is about 27%. And it's unknown right now, how the arbitrators are going to take into account the economic situation. One of the recent awards said, yeah, we realize there's an economic crisis, but based on the analysis of this year's data, the year that they had in front of them, they concluded that that municipality was able to pay. So in order to avoid the significant expense of arbitration, one of the objectives is to avoid the expense of arbitration. By having a 1-year contract, we'll have a better idea, when we go back to negotiate, we'll have a better idea what's going to happen and what would be an appropriate thing to do. So.
Also, I'd like to add to that, Mayor. Also, by going to an arbitrated contract, pretty much the only thing that the arbitrator looks at is salaries. We got some concessions from the union, from the police union, that we could not have gotten by going to arbitration. One of them was on hospitalization. One of them was on the way that overtime is manned. And another one is on the PBA leave and residency clause. So the city got some concessions that we never would have been able to get from the PBA if we had gone to arbitration.